Sweet. Hey everyone, how you doing? Thanks for joining me again. Dr. Dan in the house. Just wanted to do another live cast and talk today a little bit about the endocannabinoid system and our sleep, okay? Our circadian rhythm, which is really just a fancy word for, circadian, just meaning a circle. The repeating sleep wake cycle and the hunger and feeding cycle and energy balance that goes together with the sleep and wake cycle. And I know in today's modern society, talking about sleep couldn't be more important. This is a really, really, really crucial time right now, with so much going on in people's lives and people going about their daily busy activities, sometimes turning it off at the end of the day comes to a real bane of people's existences, really, because once you come home from work, there's so much responsibility to look after. It might be your significant other, children, the side hustle that you might be doing, staying on top of your exercise regimen, which is going to have to be outside of work hours, and staying on top of all of these responsibilities that keep us functioning in the modern world. Putting all of those extra things on our plate is going to come with a degree of anxiety that will naturally spill over into the evening hours and into the time of day when normally we'd be winding down and looking to get some rest. Okay. So, talking about the sleep issue and ideas of anxiety going into bedtime and insomnia that can result of this nighttime anxiety, these are crucial concepts. This is very, very important because when you look at it through the lens of the following day, after someone has had either a good night's sleep or a poor night's sleep, the results are staggering. Okay. I'm sure you folks can attest to it yourself, how your day goes and your attitude and the kind of decisions that you make, healthy or not healthy, after a good night's sleep versus a poor night's sleep. These things are important. The kind of behavioral decisions that you make with respect to your health, these are important. That could be the difference between someone having the energy and the mindfulness because they had a good night's sleep to prepare a healthy meal or healthy meals that day, which takes chopping up vegetables and preparing and washing and all that stuff, and maybe taking the extra time because they have the extra energy to do a reasonable workout. It doesn't have to be P90X, but if you have more energy, you can definitely do more vigorous stuff. On the other hand, then there's the poor night's sleep. We feel groggy. We don't have the energy to prepare healthy food. We go out and we eat fast food. We're not going to have energy to work out. We might feel grouchy because we didn't have a good night's sleep. These things might affect our interpersonal relationships, and we all know when that part gets scratchy, that definitely makes life more difficult, especially when we look at we're most likely to take out our poor behavior on people that are close to us or people that we might see every day, maybe even a coworker, maybe even your boss. Not good. Okay. So what we get from our sleep is the vigor and vitality to really, really engage our present during that day. Okay. And on top of that, when our sleep cycle is really synchronized and in balance with our native homeostasis, right? How we were created to be. When that is in balance, our hunger cycle follows a more intuitive flow as well, such that we're not eating at inappropriate times or eating the wrong type of fuel at inappropriate times. If you're eating inappropriate fuel, no time is appropriate to eat that. But those kinds of urges that we have, the kinds of calories that we crave, are going to be influenced by our circadian rhythm. Okay. And basically, when we're talking about our circadian rhythm, we're talking about the rise and fall of different hormones, for example, cortisol, That's our that's in part of our fight or flight hormone, but also involved in metabolism, in mobilizing glucose. Okay. So, when we think about these things, the circadian rhythm is not small fries. And it comes to no surprise, since I'm here talking about it on my live cast, that the endocannabinoid system is central to this process. Okay. It's the thing governing this process, a very important process. Okay. Regarding when the body is going to get tired and when the body is going to have enough rest that it decides to just naturally wake itself up. Okay. And a properly rested body, once it arises in the morning, its natural inclination is really not to go and seek food. That really doesn't happen. A properly timed hunger wake cycle, that really doesn't happen natively in a human until the mid afternoon. This idea about running for breakfast and breakfast being the most important meal of the day, garbage. Put my MD behind that. Garbage. That's foolishness, right? Unless you're doing shift work and you come home in the AM and your breakfast is actually your dinner and you have a flipped circadian rhythm. Not really much has changed there. You're still timing everything the same way. The only difference is you've flipped the sleep wake cycle so that it's inverted against the cycle of the sun and the moon. So your timing of calories really doesn't change there. It's still going to coincide with your sleep and wake cycle. Okay. So I wanted to outline what the normal baseline is when the endocannabinoid system is running properly and has all the hormones in the place where they need to be. The hunger and satiety hormones, incretin, ghrelin. These are hormones involved in the hunger and satiety cycle. It's the endocannabinoid system that governs over these autonomic processes and ensures that the way how we go about seeking calories follows a physiologic process where we're fulfilling an energy caloric demand. The body is saying, we need energy now. We don't want it. We need it. So we take in energy at an appropriate level that's going to coincide with our energy output. Okay. So the endocannabinoid system, when running properly, is going to ensure that our energetic balance sheet remains balanced. Okay. If the endocannabinoid system is off and we're not getting restorative sleep, we're going to misfire and misappropriate and overestimate the amount of caloric intake that we're meant to be taking in, because we're not bound to do a whole lot of energy expenditure after a poor night of sleep because we don't have the energy there to begin with, even if we were to feed ourselves properly. Okay, we haven't been rested. So what happens? We make a poor energetic decision, energetic meaning food calorie energy. We make poor decisions when we haven't been rested, secondary to an imbalance in how our endocannabinoid system is governing our cycle of rest and sleep. So, what do we do? All right. Well, the answer here, all right, is to add into the fund of our endocannabinoid system. And it doesn't need to be a blazing bong hit, folks. It could be a small one. But really, what I'm getting at is, in order to prime the endocannabinoid system, you just need to give it a couple of pumps, right? A gummy or two, that's 10 or 20 milligrams of THC, all right? Or an inhalation or two. Okay, if you're a bigger person or maybe have more tolerance, maybe 3 inhalations. Okay, don't hold your breath. I've gone over this before. No real sense in holding your breath, folks, to extract more THC, because we don't hold our breath to extract more oxygen when we breathe. So I just wanted to throw that out there for those who inhale. All right. But the reason, folks, I wanted to get into the discussion of how the endocannabinoid system is crucial in this process. I want you to think about this. Okay, this is the distribution of the endocannabinoid system will really tell you the whole story. Structure tends to fit function. Okay. So, when we think about our emotional center, all right, that's really when we're talking about, say, for example, our amygdala, real central to our control of emotions. And the amygdala is part of our emotional center, and it's connected to our frontal brain, which is the real human part of our brain that goes about the executive function and calculation and thinking and planning and making sure that we're adapted to our current environment and doing all of our responsibilities. It doesn't really much care for the stress that's imposed by doing these activities. That does not show up on the frontal lobe's balance sheet, right? That's the job of the amygdala. Now, what happens when those are connected, when the emotional center is sending to our executive center, hey, there's these responsibilities. You need to worry about these. I'm worried. There's this bill to be paid, so we have to work hard. We have to stay late at work and impress our boss so we can get that raise. We have to make sure and do 1,000 sit-ups so we can have the six-pack abs. So when I post on Instagram, I look great and I can get 1 million viewers and all these likes and da 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 da, and the never ending cycle of all these things that we need to do that we really don't need to do. Most of our problems are going to take care of themselves when that time comes. Okay. But at that moment, when we're trying to power down and the amygdala is real loud, giving us a lot of emotional messages that could be overblown because we're tired, and we tend to amplify these emotions when our energy levels are down. We don't have a good defense against them. Okay, that's when we're down. We're in a state of endocannabinoid deficit. Okay, so we're not balanced at that point. Just a small little primer, a microdosed primer, can get you back feeling balanced, where you can quiet that amygdala that's keeping that frontal brain active, all that noise. That's what's keeping you up. Okay. That amygdala has not had the chance to cool itself down and turn its volume down to next to nothing. Folks, when we do meditation, what it does is it quiets that amygdala and the rest of the emotional center, so that we're not getting false messages that are just amplified signals of regular things. Okay. Oftentimes, what we view as a correct emotional response is actually an incorrect response, because it has not flowed through the frontal lobe with a proper degree of patience and calculation. Right? A lot of the things that we're bothering our frontal lobe with from the amygdala at night, those things are probably better off pondered the next day after a good night's sleep, when the amygdala is quiet. After a good night's sleep, we don't feel emotionally wrecked. We feel good. We feel happy. We feel optimistic because we're full of energy, because we've gotten a good night's sleep, and our native hormones are flowing around in our blood at a concentration that's physiologic and intended to maximize productivity and minimize waste. That's why engaging the endocannabinoid system with respect to initiating the process of sleep before bedtime is very important. If our kilter is off, if our kilter isn't off, then there's not really as much of a demand for cannabis. All right. If the demand isn't there, keep your system native. If it's not necessary, then you can probably bypass that gummy or that toke. If you're good, you're good, right? If you're good, you're good. Tank is full. All right, folks. That's really the thing I wanted to lead into, so everyone can just sort of see how getting this thing back on track can really, really pay dividends. This idea of sleep is not a small thing, it's a huge thing. It's your energy balance for what you get to live your fullest life. When you can't get sleep, you can't squeeze that maximal amount of juice out of life. It's not possible. You just can't do it. You know you can't do it. You can't fake it with caffeine. You can't fake it with an energy drink. It's not how you get energy. How you get energy is proper rest, mitigation of stress, healthy foods. That fuel is oh so important, right? And getting the right amount of exercise so that we can expend that extra energy that we might have left over from the food intake that we have, and also to just sweat off that stress, release the stress by doing the normal sort of body movements that our native self, you know, I'll call it our animalistic self, but our innate self is geared and built for movement. Okay. And we can't do that if we haven't had restorative sleep. And the endocannabinoid system is just, it's built specifically for this purpose so that the cycle of our day happens the way how it's supposed to. Our visceral native functions, more than anything, need to happen on a predictable clock. And the concentrations of our hormones that go about governing the timing of this, those things have to be in proper concentration as well. All right. And that's what cannabis does. It affects the hormone balances so that if something is wrong in that hormonal milieu, all right, the concentration of all of those things in the blood, something is wrong, it's going to set off that endocannabinoid chemostat, which measures the respective levels of these hormones. And it's going to make the proper endocrine adjustment so that we can move in the proper direction and get these things timed out properly. So that's why I talk about cannabis with respect to whole body health. It's not the whole kit and caboodle, folks, and I don't even pretend to make it seem that way. But it is an instrumental tool to have in your belt so that if you need to make that particular adjustment for that thing that cannabis is very well suited to do, you can do that. Hammer and a nail, they go well together. Okay. Hammer will never be a screwdriver, but for that thing that it's meant to do, that hammer can whack that nail right in there. And when we're talking about balancing the sleep and wake cycle, endocannabinoid system, cannabis activating it, that's your hammer and nail. The cannabinoid receptor, CB1, coupled with cannabis. Nothing does it better. Sleep medications don't do it better. They don't even do it nearly as good because our native system is not set up for those man-made type things. That's why they never work over the long term. They don't activate the endocannabinoid system and initiate a cascade of events that come to lead to a physiologic outcome. The body will recognize that these are external artificial chemicals that are not in keeping with our physiology. They might work for a short period, but after a while, our body's natural chemistry will come to reject it. It's a process known as tachyphylaxis or tolerance, more appropriately called intolerance of an external drug, right? Maybe more insensitivity would probably be a more appropriate term. But that's the reason why sleep medications, be it Ambien, Lunesta, if we're talking about benzodiazepine, Restoril, also known as temazepam, these things will lag far behind in terms of efficacy versus cannabis when it comes to getting someone reliably to sleep, keep them at sleep, and ensure that they're properly rested the next day to really attack and engage life and really get the most out of their happiness so that they're living a life that's mostly on their terms, how they naturally come to go about their day to day. All right. So I know I went a little bit long with today's live cast. Usually I'll probably keep it to about 10 minutes, but I figured talking about sleep was really important. You know, people have been known to take a weed nap or two, but really with respect to getting to sleep, cannabis is just really the thing that can catalyze people into getting that schedule of things on track. If I may just say one more thing regarding sleep hygiene, cutting off the caffeine, sort of after the midday point, folks, is probably a good thing, because you'd have to dose more cannabis, I think, if you've been overdoing the caffeine later on in the day. Cutting off the screen time at least an hour before bedtime, and cutting off work and all of that other stuff, for that matter, just to begin that process of turning off your sympathetic drive, that fight or flight drive, and turning on the parasympathetic, rest and digest sort of, hormone set. I think doing that at least an hour before bedtime, probably a good idea. Probably the ideal time for you to dose that cannabis, just so you can begin the process of slowing down and easing the burden and thought processes before you actually get, in the prone position, laying down for bed. Okay, so those things that we do apart from cannabis related to sleep hygiene are important. When I'm talking sleep hygiene, I'm not talking about taking a shower before bed. Really up to you. I'm not sleeping next to you guys, so I'm not going to judge you on that. Okay, how you smell is really your own business. So I'm not going to ask about that. Feel free to comment below. Also, feel free to like and subscribe, guys. I love it when you listen. If you have suggestions, questions, um, comments, all accepted. All right, all good. Hey, nice talking to you folks today. It's always a pleasure to join you, a privilege to join you, to be honest with you. When you love what you do, it's not work. To be honest with you, it's always play for me anyway. So, hey guys, love talking to you. Dr. Dan out. Have a great day.